Hi, I'm Hal Roberts. This is Bridge City News. Here's some of the top stories we've been following. The former leader of the Reform Party, Preston Manning, will lead a new Alberta review into the province's response to the COVID-19 pandemic. We hear from a spokesperson in the trucking industry who explains how higher costs for truckers may be impacting the price of food. And New Zealand's Prime Minister is resigning next month. We hear why Jacinda Ardern is stepping down from public life.
Your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Hal Roberts.
Thanks so much for joining us. A father and mother have been charged in connection with a sexual assault of their 6-week-old daughter. Lethbridge police say they were called to a Northside home on Wednesday to check on the girl after receiving information that she was being abused. EMS transported the baby to hospital where she remains in critical condition. Upon further investigation, it was determined the child was assaulted numerous times over the past 6 weeks. A 52-year-old male and a 31-year-old female face multiple charges and appeared in court earlier today. Police did not release the name of their parents to protect the identity of the child. The investigation is ongoing. Canada's Health Minister, Jean-Yves Duclos, offered an update as to health care funding provinces and territories will be receiving. Duclos says there have been significant progress over the past few weeks on potentially getting a deal done.
I'm positive and optimistic, as the Prime Minister is also, as he has signaled earlier this week. And that's because we have seen a shift towards a focus on what matters to Canadians, which are results. Results for patients and healthcare workers. That's what people want, and that's what I believe premiers also want now. And that's great news for everyone across our country. And great news, I believe, I would also add for the health ministers, my colleagues who've worked so hard in the last year with me and many others, experts and partners across our country to signal how much more we need to do together to achieve the right results for people in the short, but equally importantly in the longer term.
There's been some discussion that perhaps the Trudeau Liberals may work bilateral agreements when it comes to health care funding with each individual province. Ontario Premier Doug Ford says he's really not on board with that idea.
I always consult with 12 other premiers on this, and it's not going to be a one-off for Ontario, another for someone else. We've all agreed, all the premiers, we all have to work together and stay united, and that's exactly what we're going to do.
Preston Manning, the former leader of the Reform Party, will be leading Alberta's review of the provincial COVID-19 pandemic response. Manning has also been helping lead a citizen-led inquest into the federal government's COVID-19 response. Manning will be paid $253,000 for his part, and the panel will have a $2 million budget. He will recommend other members of the panel to Premier Daniel Smith. In a release, Manning said the panel will invite experts and the public to provide their views on how the government can better respond to future health emergencies while mitigating impacts on the well-being and livelihoods of Albertans. Alberta Premier Daniel Smith is denying allegations that she knew anything about staff sending emails to Crown prosecutors working on cases involving the Coutts border blockade last year. A report says shortly after Smith was sworn in as Premier, emails were allegedly sent that critiqued the prosecutor's assessment of the charges. In a statement on Thursday, Premier Smith's office said that the Premier has not been in contact with Crown prosecutors and has no knowledge of anyone on her staff having done so. The Crown's office also says they have no recollection of receiving those emails from the Premier's office. Last week, the opposition NDP called for an investigation into claims from Smith that she was in regular contact with Crown prosecutors about COVID-19 court cases. She later clarified those comments, saying she only held high-level discussions with Justice Minister Tyler Shandro and his Deputy Attorney General. You know, we've all seen huge increases in food prices as inflation is still hovering well over 6%. Some food items, however, have seen an increase of 10 to 20% over the past year, including many of the vegetables we enjoy. Some of the rising food prices can be attributed to the increasing costs truckers are facing, an important industry which delivers our food to us. Now, to talk about this in more detail is Al Nelson. He's a dispatcher who works with CJD Trucking, and he joins us here in Lethbridge. Al, what kind of inflationary pressures have you seen in the trucking industry?
Well, it's pretty much across the board, Hal. Of course, fuel is always an issue. It's higher than it's been historically. Our labor costs are much higher. Parts, equipment is just gone crazy with all the electronics that are in the newer equipment. The maintenance costs also have increased. So across the board, insurance costs are through the roof. So our expenses have gone up drastically in the past few years.
So have any of the government handouts, including suspending the provincial fuel tax for your industry, helped at all?
Well, it helps within Alberta. Of course, we have we're not paying provincial tax at the present time. As an interprovincial carrier that we travel in multiple provinces and the United States, that doesn't impact us. It impacts our local stuff, of course, and helps us out somewhat. But traveling into other provinces, we do need to pay the fuel tax in those provinces, even if we don't purchase fuel there.
Now, Al, we've also heard that there's a real shortage of truckers across many parts of Canada. Is that still the case? And if so, why?
That's been for several years. It seems that entry level is much tougher now, as the insurance doesn't want to insure a new driver that we're going to train from scratch. They just don't allow it for smaller companies. Some of the larger companies are able to because they have 1,000 drivers, so they can bring in 50 new drivers and train them and blend it into their insurance. Our insurance basically won't allow us to hire anybody unless they have about 3 years experience.
Thanks so much for your time, Al. That was Al Nelson, dispatcher with CJD Trucking, located here in Lethbridge. You know, the Bible says that our bodies are fearfully and wonderfully made, and many holistic-minded people believe that given the right building blocks, our bodies can do a good job of healing itself. Nutritionist Josie Bosgra says that our bodies will provide signals to communicate what important nutrients we may be missing from our diets.
Whether it's fingernails or hair or skin or lots of other things we could talk about. Those are the top three that came to my head. But these are very tangible markers if you let them be. I think lots of people don't. They don't have the awareness to say, my nails are more brittle than they were last year. What's going on? So in that case, it could be actually connected to your hair too. If you're depleted in minerals, for example, that can change things. If you're not taking in adequate protein, every cell needs protein to do its job.
Make sure you catch the full interview with nutritionist Josie Bosgra and producer Michael Clausen coming up after Business News. Well, it was nice that we've been above the freezing mark the past few days. Jeanette Rocher is in now with an early peek at the forecast. Jeanette, we may see that continue this weekend, but only on Saturday?
Yes, we are looking at quite the temperature variation from Saturday to Sunday, Hal. Saturday, we are looking at that mercury rising all the way up to 7 degrees with plenty of sunshine, and then down to an overnight low of -2. Now, it's not going to warm up much more than that for Sunday. We're looking at only a high of -1. And here's the kicker. Snow is also expected on Sunday. But the good news is that those plus temperatures will be back again next week. I will be back later in the show to give you that 7-day forecast.
Thanks so much, Jeanette. A Stars Lottery home is being named in honor of a local boy who was able to survive thanks to their services. The Leo Joseph House, built by Van Arbor Homes, is located in the Crossings neighborhood in Lethbridge at 1405 Halifax Road West. Leo's mother, Mandy, says he developed pneumonia at 11 weeks, and Stars Ambulance saved his life by flying him to Calgary back in 2015. She says he was on life support for a week at the Alberta Children's Hospital and fortunately survived. Now, according to officials with Stars, last year alone they flew over 17,100 missions, with 74 of them right here in Lethbridge. The sport of pickleball has recently seen a rise in popularity in Alberta. Now, members of the Lethbridge Economic SBC, however, voted against a request by City Administration 8-1 on Wednesday to provide an additional $300,000 for a new pickleball court in our city. In 2021, Council approved $650,000 to upgrade the existing pickleball courts at Legacy Park. Councillor Ryan Parker was the only one to vote in favor of the funding request. Councillor John Middleton Hope provided his reasoning for voting against the motion.
There is no indication from the group that we have tournaments on the horizon that are going to necessitate this increase in additional courts at this particular point in time that would generate additional revenues. So I would be in favor, certainly, of asking them to come back when they can confirm the use has exceeded the new courts that they'll have. and then we can look at that time funding for refurbishing the existing courts.
City officials said that 12 courts are needed to be able to host local and provincial tournaments. Up to 16 would be needed to host bigger events for the sport. Now here's a follow-up to a story we brought you about the playgoers of Lethbridge celebrating their 100th anniversary here in the city. City administration made a presentation at the cultural SBC meeting on Thursday on behalf of the playgoers to ask for the approval of a commemorative plaque to celebrate the centennial season of the group. SBC members voted unanimously to approve the monument, which will be built on the exterior of the Sterndale Bennett studio. Officials from the playgoers were happy with the decision. They also said their group is the longest-running theatre company here in Western Canada.
And as far as across Canada, we're in the top 2 or 3. Right? There is a company in Ottawa that is about 7 years older. And there is a little bit of question around what happened during the war years, because these kinds of events weren't actually supposed to take place in the form that they were. But we did partner with things like the YMCA at that time to put on things for soldiers.
The plaque will cost just over $2,300, which is covered through a federal grant the group was approved for. The Chinese community in Lethbridge is almost ready to reveal the wonderful red of the Lunar New Year. The Chinese New Year begins on January 22nd and is a time of hope and a way for families to gather and bring in the year of the rabbit. Video journalist Micah Quinn chatted with members of the Southern Alberta Chinese Association about the long and colorful history of the festival.
We really take it as a big event. It's the largest event in the year.
The Chinese New Year is a 15-day-long party, and according to officials with the Southern Alberta Chinese Association, the celebration is a way for families to get together and enjoy each other's company.
All the Chinese, wherever they are living, in city, far away from the home, they all go home to meet their family, meet their parents, and then sit together, eating, talking, chatting, and then grandparents give the young kids a red envelope, and then the kids play with the fireworks, just a happy time.
It's the Year of the Rabbit in 2023, and members of the association explain the significance of the animal for the Chinese people.
The nice thing is that rabbit signals longevity, and it's a smart animal. And in fact, on the moon, in our ancient story, we have a beautiful lady on the moon, and then the only live things accompanying her is a rabbit.
After 3 long years, the Southern Alberta Chinese Association will be celebrating the Chinese New Year in person at the Coast Hotel on January 28th.
Then we'll have our lion dance, which is a must for all the events. And then after that, we have a very delicious Oriental flavored buffet dinner. We'll have cultural dances, performance, singing, instrumental.
The Year of the Dragon is coming up in 2024, which is the 5th of the 12 Chinese zodiac animals. For Bridge City News, I'm Micah Quinn.
New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern announced her resignation. At the Labour Party's annual caucus meeting, she said she no longer had enough in the tank to do the job. She said her term as Prime Minister will conclude no later than February the 7th.
This has been the most fulfilling 5.5 years of my life. I am leaving because with such a privileged role comes responsibility. The responsibility to know when you are the right person to lead and also when you are not. I know what this job takes, and I know that I no longer have enough in the tank to do it justice. It's that simple. I know there will be much discussion in the aftermath of this decision as to what the so-called real reason was. I can tell you that what I'm sharing today is it. The only interesting angle that you will find is that after going on 6 years of some big challenges, I am human.
Thousands of people poured into Peru's capital city of Lima, many to protest against their president, Dina Boluarte. Reports say around 54 people have died during clashes so far. There were also 531 people injured since the political unrest began last December. The protesters are supporters of ousted President Pedro Castillo. The grassroots movement was organized by social organizations and Indigenous peoples who say they've been feeling disenfranchised. Castillo was ousted after his dismissal by Congress and arrested for having announced the dissolution of Congress and the establishment of an emergency government. You may have been hearing stories of sudden adult death syndrome. It seems to be appearing more frequently the past couple of years. We're even seeing it in younger athletes. Edward Dowd is a Wall Street analyst and a numbers guy. He says the vaccines may have something to do with it. But I mentioned to Mr. Dowd that we've been seeing sudden adult death syndrome long before the COVID-19 pandemic.
Yes, it's true that sudden athletic deaths have occurred, but not in the numbers we're seeing. And so over 38 years, it averages about 29 a year. We'd be lucky to have a month where we have 29 sudden athletic deaths. We have months with 90 to 110. So again, if it's not the vaccine, what is it and why aren't we talking about it?
You know, Mr. Dowd even wrote a book on the subject called Cause Unknown, the Epidemic of Sudden Deaths in 2021 and 2022. He'll chat more about his book coming up in the second half of our newscast. Well, we had sunshine mixed with cloud and still quite mild for this time of year. As for the weekend, it's kind of looking like a mixed bag. Complete weather details are coming up. It was nice that we've been above the freezing mark for much of the week here in southwestern Alberta. Jeanette Rocher is now with all of the weather details, including the long-range forecast. Jeanette, as for the weekend, Saturday may be the better day to go on a bike ride through the coulees here in Lethbridge?
Yeah, that's true. Saturday is looking pretty decent. We're looking at lots of sunshine, high up to 7 degrees. But if you are going to grab that bike and go for a ride, just be mindful of the wind. It is going to be kicking up to 30 to 50 kilometers per hour from the southwest. So there you go. Otherwise, you're good to go for that. And you should do it before Sunday, because Sunday we are expecting some snow and a high of only -1. -1 also on Monday, but plenty of sunshine. And then we're going to get back up into the pluses. So look at that. Just like that, we're back up to 1 degree on Tuesday, up to 7 on Wednesday, and all the way up to 9 degrees for next Thursday with a mix of sun and clouds. So we're still sticking above that average high for this time of year, which is -2, and the average low -14. So we're still in that range and mostly above that too, even next week. 16 was our high temperature on this day back in 1981, and in 1954 we had the very, very cold temperature of -43. 8:19, that's when the sun rose this morning, and the sun set this evening at 5:06 p.m., giving us 8 hours and 47 minutes of daylight. So days are getting much longer. Periods of rain expected tomorrow in Victoria with 80-kilometer-per winds in the Juan de Fuca Strait. High of 8 degrees there. 7 the high in Vancouver. Now Vancouver also looking at periods of rain and periods of wet snow in the higher terrain. 50K winds by the water there. Sunshine in Edmonton tomorrow. High of 3 degrees. And Calgary could see 30% chance of showers tomorrow. Now Saskatoon sitting at -3, mainly sunny skies, but fog in the morning. Fog in the morning in Regina as well, clearing up to sunny skies. -7 the high there. -7 also the high in Winnipeg, but Winnipeg looking at the possibility of some flurries there. Okay, so the central part of the country staying pretty even here. Toronto is mainly overcast, 1 degree the high. -1 in Ottawa with mainly cloudy skies as well. That temperature could drop though by the afternoon, and then Montreal also seeing a drop in temperature by the afternoon as well. Not so much precipitation there. Not so much the case on the East Coast though. Fredericton sitting at -3 is the high. Halifax in a actually a snowfall warning in Halifax for this evening. They could see 5 centimeters and another 30% chance of flurries in the morning. Charlottetown looking at 3 centimeters of snow tomorrow with a high of -1. High of 0 in St. John's, Newfoundland, looking at the winter storm warning there. In St. John's could see 10 to 20 centimeters of snow by tomorrow. So there you have it. That is your forecast.
Today's weather report is brought to you by Ridge Utilities, providing competitive rates for electricity, natural gas, and internet, while investing back in communities across southern Alberta.
The Bank of Canada is expected to raise interest rates for the 8th consecutive time on Wednesday. Economists, however, say it is likely the last rate hike for now. Most commercial banks are forecasting the central bank will raise its key lending rate by a quarter point to 4.5%. Economists say officials will justify the rate hike by pointing to the red-hot labor market and sticky underlying inflation pressures. Last month, the unemployment rate ticked down to 5% as the economy added thousands of new jobs. One bank economist says Canadian retail sales came in better than expected in November as consumers proved resilient in the face of aggressive interest rate hikes. Stats Canada says retail sales dropped 0.1% to $61.8 billion for the month. That was better, however, than its early estimate of a 0.5% decline. BMO economist Shelley Kaushik says in a client note that the headline number was helped by higher prices as retail sales volumes posted a larger drop of 0.4%. StatCan's early estimate for December suggests retail sales rebounded last month with an increase of 0.5%. Google is the latest company to cut staff as the economic boom the industry rode during the pandemic wanes. Company officials of the Silicon Valley giant say they're laying off 12,000 workers. Google says it is now facing a different economic reality. Officials say the layoffs follow a rigorous review of product areas and functions. Now, here's a look at today's markets. The TSX was up 161 points on the day to finish at 20,503. The Dow was up 330 points to 33,375. The S&P 500 was up 73 on the day to 3972. And the Nasdaq was up 288 points to 11,140. West Texas Intermediate Oil was up 98 cents to 81.31 U.S. per barrel. Natural gas was down 15 cents to 3.13 U.S. Gold was down 6.16 to 19.2608 U.S. an ounce, and silver was up 9 cents to 23.93 U.S. an ounce. Feed wheat is at $12.08 per bushel, barley's at $9.40. Canola's at $18.31, and corn is at $11.25 per bushel. Live cattle February contract was up 68 cents to $155.95. Feeder cattle January contract was down 18 cents to $177.93. And lean hogs February contract was up $1.18 to $77.83. The Canadian dollar was up slightly over the past 24 hours to 74.74 U.S. Recapping one of our top stories, Preston Manning, the former leader of the Reform Party, will be leading Alberta's review of the provincial COVID-19 pandemic response. Manning has also been helping to lead a citizen-led inquest into the federal government's COVID-19 response. Manning will be paid $253,000 for his part, and the Alberta panel will have a $2 million budget. It appears as though there's been an increase in the number of young athletes who are dying unexpectedly. Edward Dowd is a Wall Street analyst and a numbers guy who looked into it further and even wrote a book on the subject called Cause Unknown, The Epidemic of Sudden Deaths in 2021 and 2022. He'll chat more about his book in an interview shortly. Listen, if you see news happening in your community, be sure to drop us an email at info@bridgecitynews.ca. We'd love to hear from you.
Here's today's Bridge City News Community Calendar. The Family Center downtown Lethbridge is providing a weekly opportunity for dads, uncles, and grandfathers to play and connect with their children. Me and My Dad takes place on Saturdays from 10 to 11:30 a.m., featuring fun, brain-building activities for male caregivers to play with their kids. This program is free and open to children under 12. For more information and to register, visit famcenter.ca. On Saturday, February 25th, Streets Alive Mission is hosting their coldest night of the year fundraiser. This family-friendly walk is to raise money to help those who are experiencing hurt, hunger, and homelessness. To register, donate, and to find out more information about this event and Streets Alive Mission, visit cnoy.org/Lethbridge. And that's today's Bridge City News Community Calendar.